Hello, and welcome to the We Chat Tech podcast. I'm your host, Ben Whitmarsh, and this is Steph Thommen. Now, I've known Steph for about 3-ish years, back from her time at a company called Nimbler. And since then, she's gone on to work for a few companies, but now she's at a company called Nivoda. Steph is a seasoned people operations and culture expert with over 20 years of experience spanning both corporate and also high growth startup environments. Steph's insights into modern work culture have sort of helped a lot of founders who care about both business and people. So, yeah, welcome, Steph.
Thank you, Ben.
No problem. So, I guess, Steph, maybe it's good to start where it all began. So, who is Steph?
Oh, that's a big question. If we think about currently, or from a professional perspective, as you said, I'm experienced in scaling startups with a focus originally in customer success, actually, and then I moved on to people operations, especially in high growth environment. What I realized is that you can't grow a startup without having the right people into the right structures to enable that growth. A lot of startups just keep growing and they don't think about what are the foundations that we need to be able to grow effectively and scale effectively. And that's what I've set out to try and solve is understand the different environments of each startup and help them set up the foundations that they need to be able to scale and become the scale ups and the unicorns that they want to be.
Fantastic. Fair enough. And, Steph, obviously, when it comes to your career so far, can you share a bit about your journey into people operations and what sort of sparked your passion for the field?
Yes, it started with my career actually. I started my career in call centers. And way back when, it was one of the most unhuman environment you could work in. Like you wear a machine with a headphone, answering queries, following a script, and we were, because I was an agent myself, we were not able or allowed to deviate from the script, which means that in practice we were then not able to help customers that had unusual issues. And I started wondering about that. It's kind of, well, I know how to resolve this issue, yet I am not allowed to, which is insane when you think about it. And so that led me to actually work hard to be promoted so that I could help change things within the call center. And I ended up leading outsourced call centers for Apple, for Symantec, and for Linden Labs. So I was the unit manager for those three businesses. And what I experimented with is remove the script. And I didn't tell my clients and I didn't tell my manager. I was kind of, let's try remove the script and see how people perform. And suddenly our customer satisfaction was through the roof. My employee satisfaction was through the roof. And we were achieving all of our KPIs. And that started my journey into how do we give people the power to do what is best for the customer and what is ultimately what is best for the business. Because if I have the power to do what is best to do my job, then the business is going to benefit. And so that started me going into a rabbit hole of psychology, organization design, self-management, and trying to understand how those things work. And that's led me to where I am now, which is my understanding is for people to do their best work, they need the right foundations. And the right foundation is the culture. So the first thing you set up when you set up a business is, what is our culture? What is our purpose? What is our mission? What are our values? And that gives you the framework for people to make decisions. And then on top of that, you have what does each person need to do their job? and they need to know what their role is, and they need the power to make the decisions. And then you give them that, and they can roll and grow your business.
So it took you to be sort of restricted in a really corporate and unfriendly environment where customers weren't appreciated or cared for, to then go against the grain and turn into the Steph we know today, where you're quite opinionated and
I've
straightforward
always been
in talking. Is
opinionated.
that fair to say or not?
um,
In a way,
one of the things my mum always said is my no was always very strong from very, very little. So I've always had an opinion.
I think though, to be a good leader, sometimes you need to have that bit of grit and determination to do what's right as well. So
Yeah.
I think that obviously you've benefited from being told what to do at the start as well.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it's a strong sense of right or wrong. It is wanting to do things well, and once you want to do things well, then you look at the problem. What's the problem? How do we break it down, and how can we solve it?
So there's a whole process, I
Yeah,
guess, as well.
yeah.
Your mind is the center of everything in that process.
Yeah, and it's working in systems. My brain is really strong at working, understanding. It's kind of okay. So those are the pieces. How do they fit together? How do they break them apart and make them work better?
There we are then. By the way, Steph, I forgot to say as well, for those who don't know you very well, Steph, where are you from? Where did you grow up? And obviously, where do you live now?
So I was born in France, and I grew up in the south of France. Moved in my early 20s in Ireland. I lived there for 8 years, and now I've been in England for 22 years, 23 years. That shows my age. And that's okay. So I've lived all across the UK. So I moved in the northeast originally, and now I'm in Dorset.
Dorset, very nice. Lucky you. We always talk about the blue and the green, and you
Yeah,
get both of it there.
yeah,
So don't get that in Birmingham, Steph, unfortunately.
yeah. You get the grey and the green, I guess.
There, the grey and the green a little bit in some parts, but there we are. Obviously, your expertise, Steph, I think recently has been more in startups and how to grow them and
Yeah,
work with founders and that sort of thing.
yeah.
What are some common sort of challenges you face? And you see startups face when scaling, and how do they actually overcome them as well?
Uh, the main challenge is usually the misalignment or the imbalance between wanting to grow fast and not having the systems for it. That's what I was saying. You need the right foundations, and it's understandable when you work in startups because you first have an idea and then you start working on it, and then you have an idea of a product and you find your product market fit, and suddenly it's working and you're going boom. And from there, as a founder, you're just playing catch up. You're always playing catch up, especially when you're scaling. So it's one of the challenges to pause, establish your foundations, and then start building or continue building. And you have to run the two in parallel, which is not easy. The other challenge is to hire at speed so that you have enough people to do the work. And with that challenge comes the fact that you are often restricted by the runway. It's just kind of you. Sometimes you know you need 20 people and you can only hire 3. How are you going to do the job? How do you prioritize? How do you make sure you really have the best people for the job? And another challenge is, because you're keeping your team small, how do you make sure that you keep, develop, and motivate your key players, your highest performers? Because they are motivated and they want to be there and they want to grow the business, but at the same time, it's a big load on them. So how do you manage the workload and the fact that at the end of the day we're only human and we only have so much bandwidth during the day to do what we want to do.
Do you think there's a thing like such as scaling too quickly, Steph? Is that something you see a lot when you have so much work with clients that you have to deliver on that work and you have to hire people on contracting or even on perm as well? How does it work? Do you think a lot of founders have to get sort of too involved in spending the money too fast to hire and then they burn the cash too quickly? How does that work?
That's a very good question. One term that we use quite a lot at Nivoda actually is whack-a-mole hiring. And whack-a-mole hiring is, oh, we have a gap, let's hire for it. And it's fine for us because of the stage we are at, and we have enough funding in the bank. But what I've seen is smaller startups try to do that as well. Is there is a problem that the startup is trying to solve, and we think that by hiring a body, it's going to solve that problem, instead of looking at the team holistically and say, okay, what is the problem we're trying to solve? Is this really a problem, or is it a different problem that we are feeling? Because often when you when you feel a pain, and that goes for every business, not for startups, when there is a pain in the business, if you dig the pain, you say, I have that pain, this is the problem, you have to dig to actually get to the root cause of the problem. And so it's pausing again, it's slowing down to speeding up. You pause, you really understand, dig, understand what the problem is, and then you can decide who you want to hire, if you need to hire. And then you can decide, well, okay, so our goal is over there, we want to get to so many customers, this is a permanent role, this is a temporary role. And my advice would be always start with a temporary role, because you want the person to test the waters, and you want to be able to separate if you need to change direction.
Okay. And when you have somebody, Steph, like yourself in the team at a small startup, is it yourself that makes those sort of key choices in terms of how they hire, or is it the founder ultimately? Who's in charge of that?
Depends on the structure of the team, but it would never be the head of people or the CPO. What the role of the CPO is to advise the founder, to advise the managers. So what we have been doing at Nivoda is everyone made a list of all the roles they wanted to have, and then we said, okay, but look at things slightly differently. And technically we should have done things the other way around, is just kind of give the following tools to the managers. Say, okay, look at your team and all of the things that you need to do, all of the things that you want to do, and then make a list of the skills. And once you have made the list of the skills, you can say, okay, so in that skill list, I have this role, that role, and this role. And sometimes, even though you already have people in the team, you need to go back and do that exercise without thinking, oh, well, there's Jane doing this and Joe doing that. So you need to go back to, well, this is the list of things I have to do. Those are the skills I need. This is the roles I have. Can I develop Jane and Joe into this role?
Interested.
Right? And then if you can, great. If you can't, then you're going to have a different conversation, saying, okay, so the company is changing, and we will help you find a new job. And I know a lot of startups are doing that quite well, because they are being kind with their team members while being firm for the business. Just kind of, okay, so that setup doesn't fit anymore, we need to change, so we're going to help you transition to another role or to another business, and then we will hire for the role we need. The mistake I see founders make is say, well, I like Jane and I want to keep her, so I'm just going to hire around Jane's weaknesses, and that doesn't benefit the business.
Interesting, right? So obviously, so hiring the right people is obviously important, but sometimes, I guess, when it comes to business, it doesn't always make sense to make those hires unless you have a really strong business case to do so. And obviously, if you make the wrong hires at the start, you can then end up making redundancies, and it can be a bit of a mess, I guess, as well from the top.
And also sometimes I'm going to hire someone with the right hire for the company I have now, but when I've doubled in size, then that hire is no longer right.
Yeah,
And that's why I'm saying you need to handle that with kindness, because that person has helped you get from where you were to where you are, and there should be a lot of gratitude there. And at the same time, it's still a business and it's still about money. So either that person, you can help that person develop, or what I've seen, Nivoda does it as well. What I've seen a lot of startups do is say, okay, there is no room for you here anymore. You've done as much as you can. Here is 2 months, 3 months, 4 months to help you go and find another role. And people are usually grateful because it's recognizing that they have hit the limit that they can benefit the business and benefit their career in this particular role. And at the same time, you're enabling them to grow and develop in something that is going to be better for them. My first port of call would be, but can I develop that person into the role we need them? Because they have all of the institutional knowledge that you need, and they are an amazing asset to the company. So that's the first step. But then if this is not possible, then it's kind of okay. So we need to help them move on so that we can hire the right person for the stage of company we're at.
interesting. So, Steph, on that note, then, so in terms of sort of when you're growing a company that's still quite small, let's say 20 employees, for example, how do you balance the need for rapid growth with maintaining a really strong and cohesive company culture? How does that work from your point of view as the head of people or similar?
Well, the first thing is that the head of people is not responsible for the culture. The culture comes from the leadership and mainly from the founder. And the reason for that is that we are naturally hierarchical beings, and we follow the hierarchy. And the founder will always be the founder and the boss and the person who is the most respected. So whatever behavior the founder exhibits, everyone is going to follow
Follows
that
that.
behavior,
Yeah.
which makes the role of the founder even more challenging. If you think of all the things they have to do, and at the same time, they have to watch everything they do and everything they say, because if they say something wrong, then everyone is going to say, oh, it's okay to be an asshole. Sorry.
No, people forget, by the way, how important it is to lead by example. Like I've
Yeah,
worked, Steph, at, as you know, some corporate companies in recruitment, and yeah, no names sort of from my end, but there's been certain directors that have been really, really not abusive, but verbally abusive,
yeah,
and bullying young members of staff and saying
yeah,
inappropriate things, and it actually spreads across the whole team.
absolutely.
It's ridiculous how quick it actually spread
Mhm.
really
Yeah,
quickly.
yeah.
So I think it's not just tech; it's every industry can. It's the same, isn't it? Almost.
It's everywhere. And to really answer your question, the way I advise founders to do it is first establish what culture do you want, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier on. Is need to have your purpose. So why are we here? Your mission is how are we going to get there in the short term, and the values is how are we going to do that. And once you have that, you can hold everyone accountable for their decision, including the founder. And on top of that, what it gives you is a very easy tool for decision making. But that means that once you have your values, I think the best example I had of that is Neum. So Neum is a clean tech startup. I joined them very early on in their journey, and I started by doing a workshop on the purpose, vision, mission. And one of the things that happened is they had an opportunity for an investment, that didn't align with the values, right? A lot of people would have gone and said, it's the money we need to get us to the next stage, and they would have taken that investment. And at NIEM, they just said, nope, that doesn't align with our values, we're not taking it.
So that obviously showcases that it's not always about money, is it? Because you can accept money from anyone, but if they're going to come and sort of disrupt your ways of working and how you
Yeah.
treat people and
Yeah.
customers as well, then it can ruin the whole company's brand and reputation.
And reputation and culture, it ruins your culture, because at the end of the day, if as a founder, you're making a decision that goes against your values, you're saying the values don't matter. So if the values don't matter to the founder, why shouldn't they matter for me? If the founder doesn't live the values, it's kind of okay, that they're just things on the wall that they look pretty, and everyone thinks they're great. And then once you've been hired and you look at the way people behave, you just go, what kind of a shit show is this?
But Steph, do you not think that happens quite often in tech? Like, do you not think a lot of tech companies that they have, let's say, 5 values on their website, and then obviously when you go and work for that company, it's a whole different ball game? Is that not quite common?
99% of the startups I've worked with. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just it happens a lot more than you think, doesn't it?
It's hard, but because it's what I said earlier on, you have to watch everything. As a founder, you have to watch everything that you're doing, everything you are saying, and also call people on when you see not living the values. Right. So and because you're not a one-man show, you have a leadership team. Usually it's kind of okay, so you have to manage your leadership team and make sure that the leadership team live their values. So you're managing 4 or 5 people, and it's kind of, you have to be on point with the values every day, all the time, and then they have to do that to their team. So it's a commitment, it's a serious commitment, and at the same time, the way it benefits the business is by enabling people to do their best work again. Because when people join a business, they want the money and they want a job, fine. But more and more nowadays, people are joining a business because they believe in what the business is trying to do, especially when you're joining a startup. I know people who have taken 25 pay cut, 25 grand pay cut to get into a business because they believed in that business.
25 grand pay cut.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And when you do that, you believe in the purpose, but you have to have the values, and you have to follow values. You have to have the culture for those kind of people to stay. Because if you, as a recruiter, it's always a challenge to attract the right talent in the right role. So if you have found this person who is amazing for your business, and they are willing to take such a step back in salary to join you, usually there's a balance with equity and things like that. But salary wise, they're taking a massive pay cut and they're joining your business. You have to retain them, and retaining them is by enabling them to do their best work, and it's by freeing them, by providing them with the right frameworks, systems, and foundations that they can go and say, this is the best way to resolve that problem, and this is how I'm going to benefit the business.
Interesting. Steph, obviously from your point of view internally at a company, how does the recruitment work from like a talent attraction point of view? Because I think, for example, if like Nivoda, for example, Steph, at the moment, about how many people strong? 200 people-ish? Bit more than that now?
450.
450, in fact, doubling growth then in 6 months or something.
Yeah.
There we are. So if they're at 450, which is not really a startup anymore, is it?
No, we're a
Scale up?
scale up.
Definitely
Yeah.
a scale up. So I suppose, how does it work from like a brand marketing point of view? Do you sort of have meetups you attend and put on for the community, or is it about marketing on LinkedIn? How do you ensure you get talent attraction to come to Nivoda, I guess, as well?
Currently, very little actually. I have a very good recruiting team. I have a talent team that is amazing, and we do a balance of applications and sourcing, and that depends on the role usually, or the seniority of the role. So the more senior the role, the more sourcing we do, and we tend to get a lot of applications for more junior roles. And we use a combination of LinkedIn, and a lot of our team is in India, so we use the Indian LinkedIn, which is called Naukri.
Fantastic. And how do you, with it obviously being a global company, Steph, sort of at that scale up phase now, is it different for every region in terms of the HR side of it? How does that work from your point of view as well?
From the people side of it, it is different because you have to adjust to the culture, but you have to understand what the legalities are for the country, adjust to the country's culture, so understand what is acceptable, what will work, what will not work. And what we've done that works quite well is look at it from a global perspective. So for instance, our maternity leave. What we did is we looked at the main hubs that we had and look at what's the legal minimum that we need to offer. And then we looked at the average. And what we did is offer what is average for globally, which means it's about the UK. When you look at maternity leave, it's the UK offers an average package. Everyone who offers less than the UK is getting the level of the UK. Everyone like every country who gets more, we match whatever is legal. And on the side of that, we also have unlimited holidays. So if as a parent you needed more time to look after your child, you could take the holidays.
Do people abuse that, Steph? Do people go away for like 3 months at a time
No,
to New York and just
no,
go touring around America?
no. I wish. I would do that.
Is that allowed though, essentially? Because I see a lot of companies actually have that unlimited holiday package, which is
Yeah.
obviously great, looks really good. But how much can you actually take when you're involved in that environment? Not just with you guys, but obviously in general, like across the board that you've seen.
It's so it goes back to your culture. The culture at Nivoda is we value results more than time. So imagine that I am so amazing that I can do my job, like I can do everything that I need to do in 6 months. Technically, I could take 6 months off.
Mm. You could run like a little chatbot and AI, and they could do the work for you while you're off. That could work.
I wish. Again. um, but it's and that goes back to having the right systems in place, right? So you need to have this is how we set goals. Those are my quarterly goals, and my quarterly goals need to be challenging and all of that. So if you look at OKRs, I want to hit for the moon, probably achieve only 75% of that. And but again, if I have a team member who is so amazing that they hit their goal in 2 months, if they want to take a month holiday in the quarter, that's fine.
Why not?
The flip side to that is that there's always more to do in startups. Like the work never stops. It's 24, especially when you're global. It's 24/7. It never stops. So the challenge that we have is actually the opposite. Is people are so involved into their work and they know that there is so much to do that they don't take enough holidays.
It's tough, isn't it?
And then it's managing I've had to kick people out. I've just kind of, I don't want to talk to you, go away.
Have some time off.
Have some time off and don't talk to me. As I won't respond to your Slack. I won't respond to your WhatsApp. I do not want to speak with you. Go away.
We spoke about this stuff earlier on before the podcast around like
Yeah.
burnout and
Yeah.
all the stuff that comes with it. Like, how do you think people can switch off from work? When they're in a startup environment, especially with even from a founder's perspective, Steph, or somebody that just works, in HR team or people team or at any point in the company structure. How can you take effective time off? Because earlier on, Steph, we said about the fact that I work a few different time zones.
Yeah.
and I do have enough sleep, but sleep isn't the only rest you need.
Yeah.
So how can you encourage people to use that time and to rest properly, I guess?
I think it comes from experience, and the experience is the fact that I know for a fact that I am more productive when I come back from 2 weeks off, and my brain is clearer and I make better decisions once I've had some time off and I come back. There has been days where I worked 14 hours straight on my computer. I had my lunch on my computer, I had my dinner on my computer, and the quality of my output at the end of the day was nil. There was no reason why I kept pushing, but there was no reason why I should still be there because what I was doing was pointless. So that's that that one thing, and it's also, it's not discipline. It's not the word I'm looking for. Is trust. You need to trust that you have done your best, and the people you work with are going to recognize that you did your best, even if you didn't deliver everything that you needed to deliver. And beside trust, there is communication. So if I am not able to deliver everything I need to deliver, then I need to communicate with all of my stakeholders and say, okay, this is getting done, this is not getting done. And then the last one I'm going to add is confidence, because you need the confidence to say no. I get tons and tons of people saying, Steph, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do this? And it's kind of, yeah, I can. I don't have time, but I can. And so I'm putting it on my roadmap, and I will get to it when I get to it.
I think especially with founders, Steph, as well, they can be quite in the moment. Once again, we had this discussion earlier on.
Yeah.
How do you advise them on that? Because obviously you've given me some advice over the years, which has been very much appreciated. But can you share your knowledge with the audience and especially the founders that are listening to this, and you might be able to help out, I guess?
Yeah, I think for founders it's slightly different, because I have worked with a lot of founders who don't feel that what they're doing is work. Right? The startup is their little world, their baby, their passion, and that's why I always go back to purpose. If I know that what I am doing is valuable and serve a higher purpose, it's easier for me to give it my all. That's one side of that. And the other side of that is, as a founder, you have a lot more leeway. So if I want to take 4 hours as a founder, if I want to take 4 hours in the middle of the day to do something else, because this is my business, I am more comfortable doing it. And to enable, if you want your team to be most productive, you need to enable that flexibility for them. So that if you have someone who is more effective between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m., and then they need a nap before they actually attend all the meetings, then you need to make it explicit that it's okay for them to do that, so that people can adjust their personal style with the need of their role.
Should that be a thing we see more often, Steph, in startups these days in 2024, in a more modern environment?
In all businesses. At the end of the day, when you do that, you enable your team to give you their best work. Again, it goes back to helping your teams to thrive and do their best work. I'm not an evening person. Like by 5 o'clock, I am dead. So I start earlier.
I'm the opposite, Steph.
but
Unfortunately,
that's exactly that, right?
everyone's different, aren't they?
Everyone is different, and some people want to work 2 hours in the morning and then go to the gym or do whatever they want to do in the middle of the day, and then they will work another 6 hours in the evening. And even hours, again, goes back to hours don't matter. What if today I manage to do my work in 2 hours and no one is expecting anything from me, and it's just kind of, okay, so I've done my work, telling my team I'll be away this afternoon, and I've done it a couple of times. So I'll be unavailable this afternoon. I'll catch up. Or I'm okay. I've done everything I need to do.
Is that when, as a leader, you trust your team to cover for you and have those people around you that you can sort of rely on as well?
Yes, yeah. It's very much having a strong team and being trusted to deliver, which goes back to the founder being essential, because if the founder shows that they don't trust their team, how will the team trust their team?
On edge all the time, Steph, if that's the case. On edge non-stop.
Yeah,
I've been
this is why I decided a long time ago I didn't want to be a founder.
there. Don't blame you.
And what's the word? It's kind of cowardly of me.
No, not at all. It's
It
not.
is just I know the drain. I see the drain in the people I'm working with, and uh, just kind of, no, that's not for me.
But you're good at what you do, Steph. So you never know. Consultancy one day, your own.
Maybe one day. No,
No,
I'm wiser now.
there we are. Then. There we are. Steph, when it comes to HR, I know it's not all that you do, but it's still part of what you do as a people leader.
Mhm.
What are some outdated HR practices that you believe companies should really move away from in this day and age?
Um, that's what I was talking about earlier on, is clocking, like saying I want my people here from 9 to 5. So that's the
Is
first
that a
thing.
HR? Do you think that's a HR problem, or is that
It's a business problem, and then because it's a business problem, usually it's given to HR to solve.
good point?
Right? The annual performance reviews. So the way they've been done traditionally is you get an appraisal at the end of the year, and sometimes you get feedback during the year, but it's not doesn't work. What works much better is continuous feedback and then checkpoints. So you would have a quarterly checkpoint to reflect on your goals, your achievements, and where you need to grow. And then at the end of the year, you have a bigger session that would cover your appraisal, but you have received continuous feedback throughout the year. So that's one of the things. And the other thing goes back to what we were talking about at the very beginning, is micromanagement, is telling people what they should be doing and when they should be doing it. Businesses don't treat, or a lot of mainly corporate businesses don't treat their people like adults. So I'm hiring someone who is competent, has all of the skills, has all of the knowledge, but I'm telling them that they need to follow A, B, C, D to be able to do any part of their job. Whereas you should hire a person who has all the skill and say, this is the remit of your role. Those are the problems I want you to solve. Go for it.
But it's so common, Steph. Why is it still so common where like people are they're still micromanaging to the actual to the max as well? Like not just a little bit, just every bit of your day is controlled. I see it happen all the time. I get people that call me and say, "Oh, Ben, I'm currently being not abused, but told I can't do this. I
Yeah.
can't have breaks at work because my boss is scaring me or telling me I can't do that."
Yeah.
Why is that still happening? It's like
Um,
they'll lose their people
my
as well. They'll lose their employees.
They do. They do. And so there was a Gallup study a couple of years ago that showed that replacing a qualified and trained person cost at least a minimum of 1.5 times the salary of the new person. And usually, when you are hiring someone new, you have to go to market, and that increases the wage as well. So you're losing all of your institutional knowledge, and you have to pay
Paid
more
more.
money. Um, so to answer your question, I think it's two things. Is one is trust. people like the managers that we have in post don't trust their employees to deliver. And the reason they don't trust their employees to deliver is because they themselves haven't been developed. And I see that particularly in startups where the business grows, we need someone who is going to manage other people that are coming in. And we give them a team, and suddenly they're managing 5 people. They've never managed anyone. They often didn't have any interest in managing people, which is a different problem. And they're just kind of, well, what do I do with those guys now? And they still have their things to deliver, so they want to make sure that things are getting done, and they want, because what they trust is their own process. They're micromanaging their team and say, I know that it's going to work this way, so you need to do it my way. Whereas if the startup took the time to, one, select people who do want to go into management, and two, develop them and give them the basics of line management and leadership, which are two very different things, and two things that all managers or leaders need to be doing day in, day out, that would help not micromanage and free the team to actually do its best work.
Fantastic. When it comes to people operations, Steph, obviously for people that maybe watches and they're not really sure what career path they want to go down, what are the real good things about being within people operations? In your opinion, what you've experienced, what are the really good things about the job?
You get to know about everything. And I'm not saying being nosy and knowing what everyone does, but no, I have learned about marketing, I've learned about finance, I've learned about sales, and that gives me a holistic view of the business, and that helps me help the business better. So if you want to learn about how different things work, that gives you a great view. What I also really enjoy is the fact that you build relationships with a lot of people across the business, and you get to help a lot of people. And I'm not saying that in a fluffy kind of way, because being in people ops, you often have to deal with the most challenging situations that the business is going to face, and things that sometimes you just go,
Not today.
how did they even think this was okay? And I've had that recently a couple of times, and I was kind of, what? Even just what? Um, but on the other side, I come across a lot of people who wants to do well, who wants to develop, and who are super, super smart. And it's kind of, okay, so how do I help? It goes back to developing the managers, right? How do I help this manager to be their best self and have the best skills that they need, so that their team can thrive? And when their team thrive, then the business is going to take off.
Wow, fair play. When it comes to, once again, people operations, Steph, what are the top 3 skills you need? Soft skills I'm talking about as well, by the way.
Soft skills.
Yeah.
Um,
To get to the very top as well, to where you're at, probably the top, you think? I'd
no,
say.
the top would be CPO.
So you pretty much are, aren't you? Pretty much.
Yeah. If
So
you look
let's
at
say the top.
title, I'm not. If you look at what I'm doing, I am.
Okay, what are the top 3 skills for getting to the top of people operations?
The first one is going to be listening, because if you listen, then you understand. You can understand. The second is going to be being curious and understanding. Curious about the business. You need to understand the business as an entity, what it's trying to achieve, and how it wants to get there. Because your role as a people ops person is to enable everyone else in the business getting there by implementing the right systems. And the last one is, I want to say, thinking strategically. So what I always tell my team is you have to have an eye on the now, where we are now, and where do we want to be in 3 years. So it's looking like this all the time and saying, okay, so if I do this now, if that happens now, how does that affect us in 3 years? And how are we going to get there? Which links with the being curious and understanding the business, because you can't have the strategy if you don't have the curiosity.
I think listening, Steph, is a real. You know what? It's funny because obviously I speak to people every day, a lot of people every day as well, and you, as you do, and the amount of people in the world that can't listen is honestly like ridiculous. And I think a lot of the time is because they don't want to listen. They can listen, they just don't want to. And I think that's part of the problem when, in the whole life, in life, I think as well, not just in work. So that's a really good point. I think listening is a really key part of any skill you have to have is listening to people.
I want to challenge that. Actually, it's not
Oh no.
it's not that they don't want to, is that they want to be seen first. So they, as humans, what we want is belonging. I want to belong. I want to know that I have a tribe, and I want to know that I belong to that tribe, and I'm loved and accepted, and all of that. And you can be the most senior executive, like very serious and whatever. Deep down inside, what you want is to be accepted. Right? And that's a basic human drive, because when we were still animals and outside the tribes, being outside the tribe meant death. And so when people talk too much, or when people just go, me, it's just kind of, see me, I'm here, I'm important. Right?
Yeah, that's yeah. Yeah, I sort of probably worded that a bit wrong. I know exactly what you mean,
Yeah.
and I agree as well. To be fair, I think they don't necessarily mean it potentially,
Yeah.
but I think maybe they want to feel like everyone listens to them as well
Yeah. They,
in
they,
a way.
they, they want to be accepted. They want to be part of the group.
Interesting. That's like a psychological sort of background, I guess, as well. Sometimes in the childhood. So
Yeah.
interesting one.
Yeah.
Fair
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
What advice, Steph, do you have for founders of it, especially within tech, because that's what you've seen for the past sort of 10 years or so? What advice, top three bits of advice do you have for them when they're trying to scale?
Ooh. Um, I'm trying
Tough
to look
question.
how to phrase it. Um, the one of the most important skill is going to be self-reflection and self-awareness, because you are you are a founder. It's a big word, but underneath what you are really is human. Right. And again, as a human, you want to be seen, and you want to do well, and you want to be accepted, and all of that. And that's messy. Being human is naturally messy. And from all we everything we said before, you are always in the spotlight. So the feeling is naturally, well, I'm always in the spotlight. I can't make any mistake. And actually, you can make mistake because you're human, and you will make mistakes. So you might as well accept it. But with self-awareness, you can reflect and say, oh, I made a mistake, and then communicate and say, hey guys, I made a mistake, and this is how I'm going to fix it. And by doing that, then you show ownership. And by showing ownership, then you enable ownership in your team. That would be the first one. I think it's the biggest one, and it's one that is big enough.
I have to admit, that's probably the biggest thing that I need to improve at. Is probably self-reflection. I think once again we had this chat earlier
Mm-hmm.
before
Yeah,
the podcast,
yeah,
but like when it comes to having a company and running everything, like you don't just look at, for example, in recruitment. I don't just speak to candidates all day long.
Yeah.
I'm looking at finances, I'm looking at
Yeah.
spreadsheets, I'm looking at clients, I'm looking at people that I'm trying to help, I'm looking at CV reviews. It's quite a wide, broad job title,
Yeah.
founder is, I think,
Yeah.
as well, at the
Yeah.
same time.
Especially when you're early stage.
Yes, obviously 14 months in. So you
Yeah.
don't always get time to look back and think about the stuff you've done
Mm-hmm.
last week, last month, last quarter, because you're always in the zone and you're constantly at it, and you're not really thinking about what's happened, but what's to come, I guess, as well at the same time. So I think it's challenging. I think for any founder as well.
Yeah, and I think what you just said is essential. What happens that wants to come? It's the slowing down to speed up. Sometimes you have to just leave everything, step back, and go. Okay, so where are we at, and what are the next step? So then the second point would be true to your vision, and don't be afraid to reframe your vision, because you might what I see a lot of the time is founders start with an idea and they push that idea to the max, and they don't quite reach the market fit that they need. But if they took the step back and say, okay, so this is not working, how can I reframe this? Is there something in my idea? And instead of going this way, we can go that way, or slightly reframe. And so it's, you have a vision, and there are many ways to that vision, many paths to that vision. So your role is to maintain the vision, and sometimes that means moving around because the path is never straight.
Wow, it's getting quite deep, isn't it, Steph? I have to admit.
Yeah, that's the best conversations.
All the memories are coming back to me now about what I've done wrong and good as well at the same time.
You never do anything wrong. You always take the next best step with the information that you have, and that's why self reflection is important, because today this is the next best step, and then you reflect on it. Oh well, it wasn't, so you can take the next best step, and you're always learning and you're always adjusting.
I think making mistakes is the best way to learn as well. I
Yes,
think
yes,
personally,
absolutely.
that's what I've learned for sure. Well, when it comes to like spreading yourself too thin, Steph, as a founder, do you see that a lot? Because I've personally found that
Yeah.
it's hard to focus in one area, and obviously doing 20 things at once can leave you spread too thin.
Hmm.
Is that quite common
It
in
is
your
quite
experience?
common, and I think it goes back to trust. One of the greatest challenge I've seen with founders is letting go of their baby. So my analogy is that the startup is their baby, and there is a point where you're going to have to let the baby go and take their first step on their own, and the baby will fall, and the baby will hurt itself, or itself, himself, or themselves. So there will be challenges, and you have to trust the team that you hired that they will deliver regardless of the challenges you give them. So the tendency for you, it's probably different because your team is very small. There's only two of you, so you have to do everything. You work with your co-founder, and you manage whatever you have to do. But when you start building your team, is, if I'm giving someone product, and I'm giving someone marketing, and I'm giving someone people ops, I trust that they will deliver. My job as a founder is to give them the vision, the direction, and what we need to do for the next 6 months. And then in the background, while they're doing that, I'm going to think about, well, is this really the next best step? And after 6 months, do we need to change direction?
Okay. What are the biggest no's? So for founders, what should you not do as a founder of a tech company as well?
Um, I think it's a difficult one because I'm not an experienced founder, right? Uh, what I can tell you what I say no to quite regularly.
Okay.
So what I say no to is letting go of people without having supported them. So a lot of the time I have a founder or a manager comes to me, this person is not working, is not doing the job, or I don't want them in my team anymore. Okay, what feedback have they received? What feedback? And it's kind of, you can't do that. Like you can't tell someone they're not doing the job if you haven't supported them. It just doesn't work.
Is that a personal gripe normally? Is that because of a personal vendetta, or in your experience, or is it just because they just don't like them, or
No, it's usually the person is not doing well, but again, it goes back with spreading yourself too thin. You have so many things to do that you don't have the time to spend with your team and train them and support them. And if you don't do that, how can they do a good job?
so it's almost giving them like a holding hand to get through the tricky patch they've had if they're not performing very
Yeah,
well?
and sometimes it happens that the person is not a good fit. But what you need to do is, okay, so those are your goals. Let's review your goals in 2 weeks. Let's review in 2 weeks. Or you're not achieving, what's happening? Where can I help you? And if they're still not achieving, then maybe they're not a good fit. But if you haven't helped them, you can't say they're not a good fit because they didn't have the knowledge to do the job in the first place. They had some of the knowledge that you hire them for, but they don't know your business. So that's one of the big no's. The other big no is changing whatever, and I saw that quite a lot at Nimbla actually, which is changing direction before you see that something has a positive or negative consequence. So when you're in a startup, a lot of the time is trying different ideas and just see what stick. The thing is, you have to give it enough time to see if it actually sticks or not. And 2 weeks, 3 weeks is not giving you that. So when you want to start an initiative, try to work out how long is a good time, because you don't want to get into some costs and just keep going because you think it might work in 6 months. So say, okay, so we're trying this channel in marketing and we're going to give it a month. If it doesn't work in a month, we're going to that channel.
So it's almost like sticking or twisting and giving yourself a time limit on if something works before you try it. So you
Yes.
know that if it hasn't worked in that time,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Didn't work. Let's try something new that could work.
Yeah. And also when you stop, reflect, why did it not work? Could we have done something differently? So it's always learning. And that's why I love startups so much, is they're really good at learning. And the majority are really good at reflecting on what is actually working. Why is it working? Okay, can we replicate that? And that's amazing.
You're very passionate, Steph. I love it. I really like it. You don't always get people that are very passionate about their industry and their job
Uh-huh.
as well. So obviously, well, I know you well anyway, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
nice to see and nice to speak to you again.
Thank you.
Steph, I've asked you a lot of questions. Coming to the end now of the podcast.
Yeah.
Anything you want to ask me?
Oh, that's a good question. When are you scaling your team?
Good question. We haven't got that far yet. I think it's all about trust again, Steph. Like, can we trust somebody to come in and uphold our morals and our values and maintain the standards we've got, which are
Yeah.
very, very high to our clients and our partners.
Yeah.
So I think that's the tough bit for me. Obviously, as well, money, being
Yeah.
able to give them a salary, a fair salary as well.
Yeah.
That's difficult. We're only 14 months in. And we're a bit different to, as you know, we're not like a product-based company where we have like a regular income.
Yeah.
Obviously, we place people and we get paid for that. So it's not like we're guaranteed income every month.
Yeah.
It depends how many people we place in that month.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, it's difficult to say when we're going to scale. Maybe next year at some point, potentially, but it has to be someone that we trust, and we're going to have a good in-person chat with them
Yeah.
before they join us. So
Yeah.
I think, yeah,
I'll be happy. I'll be happy to help with that.
yes, that sounds good. That sounds good. I think I'd be happy if it was just me and Vitas forever, potentially.
Uh huh.
But I think obviously you can't scale to you can't do that if you don't hire somebody. So yeah, it's tough.
I think you raise a good point. Actually, the one of the big challenges for founders is the rush to go this way.
Yeah,
And sometimes you don't need to. Sometimes, as you said, you and Vitas is just working. You're doing something you love. You're having a good business. You have a good life out of it. Why do you need to scale, right?
yeah.
And maybe your decision is going to be no, we don't.
That's it. I think greed as well. I don't want to. I think greed can definitely play a part in that.
Yeah,
How
yeah,
quickly you
yeah,
might want to scale.
yeah,
That you can say you want to add 10 people to the team, which you could do, but then is that sustainable for 5, 10, 15, 20 years?
yeah,
Probably not. You're going to get probably 7 of those hires wrong, and they're not going to work out. And then you're back to square one, and you've
yeah,
wasted £100,000 on hiring 10 people that
yeah,
only three work out.
yeah.
So
I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier on: is what does success mean for you?
yes,
And
100%.
success means an exit for someone, and success means just being able to work 3 days a week so I can go walk the dog for the rest of the week.
I think for me, success is I always change my answer on that, by the way. So I don't have a set answer like, or making £10 million a year is success, or
Yeah,
just doing enough to get by.
yeah, yeah,
I think as long as I'm helping people and being a nice guy, I think that's for me that's good enough. And then if we scale, we scale. I
yeah.
think good things happen to good people. I think as well. So
I think you're doing amazing for two people who are just 14 months in. You're doing an amazing job.
yes, and I'm 26 next week, so I'm still young. So I've got
Ooh.
yes, I've got time, I think, to try and make it all work properly. So,
Yeah,
but no, it's good. But
yeah,
yeah,
it's
thanks,
great.
Steph, for your
My
time today.
pleasure. Lovely
Good to catch
speaking with
up.
you
And
again.
yes, see you soon.
See you soon. Take care. Bye.